this session is open to everyone, including potentially visitors from outside Queen Mary University of London. We did several tests, so I hope everything will go fine. I think we should start now. So Kaspar will give an introduction, and then we will continue with small presentations. Thank you.
Yep. Hi, Danielle. Great for you to be able to join, and yeah, welcome to everyone else who is joining us. Welcome to ARQ, the Center for Advanced Robotics at Queen Mary. We have a session today about the research that we are doing here. And I think it will be a bit rough on the edges, I have to say, because we really had this crazy idea to go to the lab, as you will see later. So bear with us there. We are still under COVID-19 restrictions, so things are a bit more complicated than we thought. Maybe a few facts here. So 27,000 students. We have a turnover of 474 million pounds and quite a lot of money coming from EPSRC, so that is part of the 105 million pounds that I'm showing here. We are one of the biggest University of London colleges, and we are also a member of the Russell Group, and I should highlight that, ranked 5th in the UK for the quality of our research outputs, at least for 3-star and 4-star level papers. That was in the last Research Excellence Framework exercise. Anyway, a few words about the Center for Advanced Robotics. So ARQ is really a part of the Faculty of Science and Engineering, and that's what I really like about the setup here at Queen Mary. So we are effectively sitting between two schools. So it's on the one hand School of Electronic Engineering and Computer Science, and on the other hand School of Engineering and Material Science. And I think that is the right way to do it, because we have now loads of AI, computer science, engineering expertise that is feeding into robotics. And I think that's the way it should be. But we are also connecting outwards towards a number of areas within Queen Mary and also beyond, as shown here. So just to give you a broad view of the activities here, so you will hear more about that very shortly. So we have a number of presentations where colleagues from ARQ present about their work. But just very high-level figures here. We are cross-faculty, multidisciplinary. We are now 4 years old. We have around 15 plus faculty members on board and at least 30 researchers, research assistants and PhD students. We have a very nice website. I would like to highlight that, which we are in the process of updating. So please do have a look to get even more information about the work that we are doing here at Queen Mary. So let me come very quickly to what is happening today. So shortly after I have finished my presentation here, we will have a number of presentations from colleagues, and that will be interrupted by a lab tour. So we will actually go into the lab ourselves, and we will present the work there, and after that the presentations will continue. And I just in my conclusion mentioned that ICRA, the International Conference on Robotics and Automation, will be in London in 2023, and that's something I'm very happy about to happen, because I think it's about time for this conference to be here in London. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, and my task is now to hand over, I believe, Lorenzo to take it from here and give his presentation.
Thank you, Kaspar. I will share my screen. Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you, Daniel, for joining us today. So my name is Lorenzo Jamone. I am a lecturer in robotics here at Queen Mary, and I'm part of ARQ, and I also collaborate with the Center for Intelligent Sensing and the Cognitive Science Research Group. And I lead a team which goes under the name of CRISP. And CRISP stands for Cognitive Robotics and Intelligent Systems for the People. And this is us, people and robots. And our main objective is actually twofold. On the one hand, we want to create smart robots by taking inspiration from human intelligence. And on the other hand, we really want to improve our understanding of human intelligence. And the idea is that if we use human-inspired algorithms for controlling our robots, we can get smart robots that can do important tasks in several applications. But at the same time, we can compare then the behavior of the robot and what we see in the human. And so we can support some hypotheses about human intelligence, about the brain, how the brain works. And more specifically, we focus a lot on the intelligence of our hands and our body. And so our extraordinary ability to grasp and manipulate objects, but also to perceive about the external world by using our hand and even communicating with others. And I'll show a couple of examples of this. So we use human-inspired algorithms for exploring objects, for robotic exploration of objects. And we combine computer vision and tactile sensing for grasping and manipulating objects. Specifically for tactile sensing, we developed novel sensors that are more sensitive than what is currently available in the state of the art. And this is very important, for example, to manipulate delicate objects, because you want to apply just the right amount of force that not to crush the object, but at the same time to hold them firmly. And then we go into more complex things, such as in-hand manipulation. And for this, we do not just take human-inspired algorithms, but we also use directly human demonstrations. So what you see in the video now is a person demonstrating an action, an in-hand manipulation action to a robot, and then the robot executing. And the idea is that after the human has demonstrated an action, then the robot can generalize this action to different conditions. So for example, if the human demonstrates a translation, then this translation can be executed again with a different length or with different objects. So somehow the robot has understood the underlying principle of what the in-hand translation is, and it can reproduce it in many other settings. And this is a bit the core of my New Investigator Award, which focuses on trying to make this process of human demonstration even more natural. So not having the human moving the object and the fingers of the robot, but having a teleoperation from the human to the robot. And for this is very important also to provide haptic feedback back to the human, so that when the robot touches something, this feeling of touching an object can be reproduced on the human hand. And for this, we are using vibrating motors that we put on a glove. And we have seen in some preliminary experiment that we can reproduce the feeling of the stiffness of an object or the texture of an object on the human side. And this, of course, is important for teleoperation, but also for demonstrating actions to a robot. And more on the human side, we also, and also on the interaction and communication side, we are looking at detecting nonverbal sign of miscommunication between humans. So how do we use our body and our hands to communicate that we haven't understood something during a conversation? And we look also at motor contribution to perception of musical rhythms. So the fact that when you listen to a rhythm, if you tap along, if you move your body, you can understand that rhythm better. But also if you look at someone else moving, you can also understand better. And that's what we are trying to prove with our research here. And of course, this is very interesting for again, understanding human behaviors, but then it has application in human-robot interaction and human-robot collaborations. And that's it for me. And I will stop sharing my screen. I think I get back to Ketao.
I will share my screen now. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining the session, and thank you, Daniela, for attending this introductory session for Queen Mary Advanced Robotics Lab. So here I will present the work that is led in the group led by myself, which is the Robotics System Group. And we are focusing on robotic systems for challenging environments. So here is a research theme that you can see. I think nowadays artificial intelligence is really a very interesting topic, and everyone is looking at. And what artificial intelligence is looking for perceptions and learning and control methods to enable robots to autonomously make decisions and act to interact with environments. Okay, in contrary, so what our group is doing is to looking at the other side, mechanical side of artificial intelligence, which is focusing on the mechanics, design, and the materials and the novel manufacturing methods that which can actually enable the robots to be more robust and in contemporary to the AI. So here, so the first one is actually NCNR funded project. So here we develop one soft gripper which can change its configuration, and so the design is based on the soft materials, 3D printing methods, and also the origami folding technology. So the idea is to using by folding the origami structure, and then you can increase the stiffness of different joints, and then you can actively adapt to the structure. So why are we doing this? Because we want to this kind of robots or gripper that has a minimum electronics on it, and so we can deploy this in the nuclear environment. And we're also doing the continual manipulator. So here is also another design based on origami folding, and you can see we have several modules with origami modules and parallel modules which are connected to each other. We can use Titans to activate that, but we want to also investigate how can we manufacture the structure, not only using paper. So here we invented this layered manufacture method. We use 3D printed structures and then use lamination. And here you can see we can also use the pneumatic actuators to activate the artificial muscle. And a third aspect is using the still based on the origami and the parallel robots. You can see here we can integrate the parallel robots and using the smart chip memory alloy material to activate the structure to make minimal that is at a very small scale. So it can be used in minimally invasive surgery. And one last point I want to mention here is about the aerial robots, which is able to approach very high altitude positions to doing the repair and the manipulation. So the novelty of this work is we integrated a parallel delta manipulator rather than serial manipulator. So it can do in the operation at the different height. Okay, so these are the 4 different research themes of my group, and you can see we have bio-inspired locomotion, and we also have movable bodied robots and robot gripper and manipulation. And I have the thanks to my team who completed this job. Thank you. I think now is the order, yeah.
Good. My name is Ildar, and I'm part of ARQ as well since 2016, and I am leading a team called Human Augmentation and Interactive Robotics. In our team, we are interested to study humans, to design bio-inspired robots, so that we can, after that, design robots for humans with human-centered approaches. One key topics I am looking at is haptics. Here you can see an example of a haptic rendering device which can generate sensation of softness or hardness, or can generate different shapes which is done with a PhD student, Joshua Brown. It was recently presented at Haptic Symposium and was a best paper finalist. We use such devices to study human biomechanics. On the left, you can see our collaboration with Imperial College London when we designed an interface to study lower limb biomechanics. For example, here we were able to discover novel results on joint stiffness of a hip joint, which was published recently. On the right, you can see a device which was used to study upper limb biomechanics, neuromotor control at the brain, muscle, and kinematics level. That device was fMRI compatible, meaning that we could scan our brain activity while we were actually actuating the wrist of a human participant in the study. I am interested in developing devices for interacting with virtual reality. With a student at Otaran, we are building an ankle interface. You can see on the left here, a human participant is able to perform stepping gesture to navigate in virtual reality as it was done in real world. We developed a novel algorithm for that, and we have demonstrated that this is an efficient way to generate walking in virtual reality, as well as generate sensation of walking on different terrains. With Buki Omar Ali, we are developing virtual reality interfaces for telerobotics. So we are able to create virtual models of remote environment, where we're able to comfortably navigate in that environment and control robots as a human operator was located in the VR, in the remote environment directly. One more topic I am looking at with my colleagues from University of Twente in Netherlands and Imperial College London is developing controllers for walking assistance. In particular, how can we support balancing during walking in healthy and in post-stroke survivors? So we got results demonstrating that we are able to minimize efforts required by muscles, but as well as methods which require minimal adaptation to these controllers. Finally, I would like to share plans for the recent EPSRC New Investigator Award. We got funding to develop balancing and ergonomics controllers and hardware to support load carrying and manipulation tasks with the help of supernumerary robotic limbs, which augment human body. This is done together with a Shadow Robot company, Okada Technologies, and Adapt Ergonomics, which will be my plan for the next 3 years. Thank you. I think now we are switching to Kaspar, who will be in the robotics lab.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, hi, we are here at the robotics lab of the Center for Advanced Robotics at Queen Mary. And as you can see, we are in full gear here. So we take it very seriously because we have obviously still the COVID-19 crisis. But I use also the opportunity to make a point because we have developed these visors here for our colleagues at the hospital, at Bath Hospital, which is part of Queen Mary. And have also developed these special mask fitters, and that is actually a grant application that we have just submitted to EPSRC under the COVID-19 heading. Sorry, and these are early prototypes that we have developed, but we have also realized much more development is needed on that front. Anyway, so today we would like to show you a bit about the activities in our lab. So we have really selected only a few just to give you a flavor. We would like to start with teleoperation, and we have Buki here, who has his own visor, special visor on top, and he will explain his work in teleoperation.
So here we have a VR-based teleoperation setup, a Franco robot behind me, running on neurokinetics, streaming to a Unity engine here that streams to my headset. I'm viewing the remote environment of the robot using the RGB sensor attached to the end effector of the robot. And here in the VR, I have gesture-based navigation in the VR. So I could technically navigate in the VR by moving, but sometimes it's not very comfortable if there's stuff around me. So I have gestures that allow me to scale the environment, to move myself within the environment so that I can position myself such that I can operate at maximum efficiency, right? So the robot, for example, I'm just dragging it to wherever I want and say I want to grab the bear. Let's check with the camera, yep, with my new long fingers. And I guess this should be okay. And grasp, and grasp. And nope, I missed it. Unfortunately. Yep. Compensate.
So maybe I can just add a few words here. So this is now a nice picture that we are grasping there, but this is actually very much linked to the work we do as part of the NCNR project. It's an EPSRC funded project in robotics for extreme environments, the National Center for Nuclear Robotics, led by Birmingham, and we are partner of that. Thank you very much, Spooky. Very good. And we just scan through the whole lab, so please follow me. And we go to the other corner to have a very quick look at what Tata is doing. So another thing is looking at subjects in locomotion. So we have Atta here. Hi, Atta.
Hello. So we are studying on virtual reality locomotion. So it is hard to navigate around virtual environments using only keyboards and joysticks because they don't provide the necessary sensory motor feedback, and they can cause motion sickness and disorientation. And there are some other things that you can do. One is using gestures, walking like gestures. And what we are doing here is we have a custom designed ankle interface where we can use our ankle extension movements in order to deviate the platform from horizontal. And these deviations are processed and mapped into locomotion in VR. You can see that I have a virtual avatar here, and I can walk around this VR scene by only using ankle movements. And also I can make this platform act stiffer so that I can also inform the user about the terrain, like terrain type, terrain slope, and yes, this is.
Okay, thank you very much, and that will definitely lead to improved ways of simulating moving around in different environments.
That's right.
Virtual environment. Thank you very much. Okay, we move on again, and let's work in the area of soft robotics. And let's start with a quick demo that we have prepared here on the floor. So we can see now on the floor one of our robots, and it might look a bit strange for a robot. It's actually a fabric-based soft robot, and as you can see, it can inflate. But now, through pneumatic actuation, we can also make it bend in different directions. So this is also related to the National Center for Nuclear Robotics, but also linked to a Innovate UK project where we try to develop robots that can go under buildings for inspection and thermal insulation. So thank you for that. Now we'd like to move over to the side and look at some other soft robotics systems we are working on. For example, here we have an octopus-like robot. I hope I'm holding the camera the right way. So again, pneumatically actuated, this time made from silicon rubber. As you can see, it can swim in the water, and really an example for soft robotics. Another example is here on the side. And you can see, okay, someone takes the camera away from me, that's much better. So we have here this soft robotic hand, and it is again made of silicon rubber. It has chambers built in. These chambers can be filled with air, and that allows then the robot to bend the fingers, like we can see on the videos in the background. Okay, so just to give you some ideas, I will switch over now to some presentation. I hope that works. Good. So soft robotics, but also perception for soft robotics, and very interested also in the interaction with the environment. So these are my areas of research, taking inspiration from the octopus, as we can see here. I think a fantastic animal, no bones involved, still capable of fantastic tasks. So looking at first at the so-called rubber bots. So we have that originated a few years ago in a project called StiffLop, where we tried to create soft robots for minimally invasive surgery. And you can see them here in a kind of presentation graphically, but also a system that has been cut open to show a bit more of detail there. And we use that to create then robotic devices that could move around. So here, pneumatically actuated, you have two segments put together, and I think already showing very much the capabilities of soft robotic actuation and soft robotic structures. We were able, in the context of this project, to actually create a robotic device that was small enough to go inside a human, so for minimally invasive surgery. And you can see again two segments together. Here, a camera attached at the end, that moving into this phantom here of a body, and being capable of moving around in a safe manner, and also relaying back images, which you see on the left-hand side, to the outside, to the surgeon, effectively. And that work led straight away to the development of the robotic hand that you have seen already earlier, and also the work on the octopus that you have seen also earlier in action. And now I would like to go to the next slide. We have also talked already about the inflatable robots made from fabric. So that was based on earlier work where we created these structures that were made of fabric on the outside, inflated for deployment, and then controlled with tendons. And the interesting thing here is that we have now structures that can move, can be navigated, but can change their stiffness at the same time. And that led to inflatable endoscopes, also grippers, as you see here. So we have developed now a gripper that can be used to grasp different objects. And that also is linked to the work on eversion robots. So here we have robots that can fold out and move forward in this way. And we showed earlier the demonstration. So these robots can evert forward, but they can also bend around corners, and we can use them for the inspection of inaccessible spaces. So here's another example, but maybe I'll skip forward. Just to highlight very shortly also our work on human-robot collaboration. And here in particular, again, we take our idea, it's a bit exhausting actually, to speak under the mask. So here the idea is to take the principle again forward of inflatable structures. Here we have integrated them into a standard robotic device, as you can see here, with two joints, two rotary joints, and then in between these inflatable links. And now they are very stiff, so the robot can carry out heavy tasks. But then if you reduce the air, you take the air out, as you can see, it becomes soft and it becomes safe. So very useful for human-robot collaboration. Good. So apart from looking into the work that you have seen on soft robotics, we are also interested in creating soft sensors for perception for soft robots. And so here we are. We face a number of problems because now we cannot use the standard sensors that are available, usually made from very rigid components, and we have now soft structures, so we need to develop also sensors that can operate in these kind of when these kind of materials, soft materials, are being used. And so we have developed an approach based on stretchable waveguides. So what is that? In principle, we created optic fibers that are soft. So moving from the standard optic fiber, which you can see here on the left-hand side, which is very good in guiding light through it, we now have created a new approach where we have changed the material. We use transparent silicone, and that is being used here to now guide the light. The advantage is that we can now integrate these stretchable waveguides with our soft robots and use that to measure the bending and the forces that are being applied from the outside. And you can see how we create that. So we create a mold. So in this mold, we pour the silicone material, which you can see here, and that is very bendable and elastic. And now if we bend it, we see a change of light intensity. So light is transmitted through this finger, and when we bend it or apply forces, the light intensity is changing, and we can relate that to the amount of bending that is being applied. And that is in more detail how we build our robotic fingers. And here we can see in a video how this works. So as you will see, the finger starts now bending, pneumatically actuated, and then we can see here the response from the from our waveguide. So effectively, the light intensity is changing in relation to the bending that we see on our fingertip there. I would like to highlight that we have a number of funding sources, and we are of course always very happy to receive funding from the EPSRC. This work, I should also highlight, is not just my own work, but lots of people have contributed there over the many years. Good. Okay, then I think that is all from my side. But Ildar said I should say a few more things about the things I'm wearing here. We're keen to help with the ongoing situation, the COVID-19. So we were approached by the hospital here, Bart's Hospital, in particular the dental hospital, and they were in need of visors. The visors here for the hospital, Bart's Dental Hospital, and they very important there for staff to protect themselves, because many of the operations they carry out create aerosols, because they drill on tools, they have to work on gum, and so lots of potential there to catch the virus. So that's where we came on board then, and I have to mention Ildar here in particular, who took the lead of that project to develop these visors that then be used in the hospital environment. And as I said earlier, we are also now working on developing these mask fitters, which are an additional element that can be worn together with the standard mask. So I'm having here a surgical type mask, having the fitter on top, and because the fitter is personalized, so it is based on a 3D scan of my face, it fits my face perfectly well, well, I should say perfectly, because we are only at the beginning here, but that's the idea, to have now a fitting device that will improve the way your mask is operating. And in this way, we want to decrease the chances of people getting the coronavirus. Anyway, good. I think I have said enough now. So thank you very much for joining us here in the lab. I think I'll pass on now to the next presenter.
Thank you, Ola. You are the next presenter.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening. So just want to talk a bit about my current research. So I'm based within the School of Engineering and Materials Science, and my overarching focus is understanding the control policies that allow us and other legged animals to move. So why am I in particular interested in control, and particularly legged animals? Because at the moment there's a huge disparity between multi-legged robotics and bipedal robotics. So on the left-hand side is Rex, a multi-legged robot modelled off of a cockroach gate. And on the right-hand side is Honda's Asimo robot, which does some spectacular failure videos that you can find online. And this is kind of this resounding story within bipedal robotics. Understanding control, particularly in bipedal robots, can help us improve these bipedal robots. And it's a similar story when we're looking at assistive technologies, be it prosthetics, exoskeletons, and orthoses as well. They are designed for uniform terrain, and we know that our environment around us is not uniform. And so therefore there is a further loss in quality of life with them. In addition, health and economic costs as well, from neurological and musculoskeletal diseases and through injury. Rehabilitation is successful, but there's still a huge quantity where we don't have full success. And understanding the control behind movements and being able to put it into whether it's rehabilitation, robotics, or other assistive technologies can help us improve quality of life, reduce progression of disease, and potentially even in the future prevent it as well. And how do I attack this? What I do is I simplify locomotion. So I ask what the nervous system tunes to allow for task success. We know that the neuromusculoskeletal system is hugely redundant. And one of the ways that we can start simplifying it to be able to look at trade-offs is by looking at perturbed gait. And the reason for this, good example is this giraffe moving on a very slippery surface. It reaches a performance limit, falls over. And it's at this point that we can start looking at trade-offs and what in particular is important to the neuromusculoskeletal system to maintain and keep going. And it's identifying these parameters, which is what my research in particular focuses on, and looking at the optimal feedback control. Looking at task-relevant parameters rather than looking at task-irrelevant parameters themselves. So in my past work, I used birds, which are a really great model system for human locomotion. And what we found when we simplified the system into a reduced order model, so this is simplifying it down literally to a ball and a leg, we can identify specific parameters with known physical limits. And it was one of these parameters we found was very low variability and was consistent in its response to the same perturbations across this huge body size range. In current and ongoing work that I have, we've started looking at this within humans and seeing whether we find similar trends. And what we've seen, this is healthy human gait, is again, this very low variability compared to, say, joint parameters, knee angles, and all of those. And again, similar responses to perturbed gait. Furthermore, have started investigating in symptomatic individuals. So on here, the grey and the green, these are from knee osteoarthritis individuals. And we see a significant and drastic shift in this parameter within the individuals who will have known locomotor issues. A current grant from Innovate UK, working with several different companies, looking at children with cerebral palsy, looking at their locomotion with and without ankle foot orthoses from a company which 3D prints their own ankle foot orthoses, and also looking in older adult fallers. And again, compared to the healthy adult human data we see drastic shifts, and we see changes both within different scenarios, so looking at perturbed gait, but also for the cerebral palsy individuals when they're wearing their ankle foot orthoses and when they're not. So what this has potential impact for is the potential for us to allow us to identify the underlying fundamental control priorities. So what does the system care about? What does it require to maintain within certain parameters to enable human locomotion to continue successfully? And from this, these fundamental locomotor principles can potentially be integrated into current robotic control policy to enable successful movement of bipedal robots. With one of the companies, we started comparing this as a gait quality metric for clinical settings, and compared to the current ones, we see consistent shifts dependent on whether participants are moving successfully or tripping. And so we're starting to move towards identifying it as a potential clinical outcome measure, and also the potential for incorporating it into exoskeleton design. Thank you very much.
Lin.
Yes, I think it's my turn to share my screen. Hello, my name is Lin, and I'm a lecturer in Primary University of London. I would be very happy to introduce my research. Actually, my research interest is mainly related with audio-visual signal processing, machine learning, and their application on robotic perception, especially the ground and the flying robot audition. Because sound is a very important modality which is complementary to visual modality. It has very important in robot autonomous and human-robot interaction. And for ground robot audition, the main challenge for a ground robot to communicate with a human in a natural environment is the noise. The noise in the room, the reverberation in the room, and the sound from the hearing speaker. All of them make it very difficult for the robot to understand human. So we address this challenge with the microarray techniques. For example, we can mount multiple microphones on the robots and utilize the microarray techniques to do source localization. That means to estimate the direction of the sound source, sound enhancement to enhance the sound from a desired direction, and also source separation to separate a target sound from a mixture of multiple speakers. For flying robot audition, this is an emerging topic in recent years due to the prevalence of drones in human life. And sound is also important for drone in drone-related applications. For example, the multimedia broadcasting, surveillance, search and rescue, and human-drone interaction. The main challenge for sound processing on drone is the ego noise generated by the rotating rotors and propeller, and this will lead to extremely low SDR at the onboard microphone, and which will mask the target sound severely and make the sound recorded at the drone completely unusable. And we address this challenge by developing audio sensing and audio visual sensing techniques. For audio sensing, we mainly use the microarray traditional approach to sound enhancement and to estimate the location and direction of the sound sources. For audio-visual sensing, we additionally employ a camera because the drone is usually equipped with the camera. We combine the audio and the visual modalities to improve the sound processing performance. For example, we can use the camera to detect the location of a potential speaker in the environment. And this is the hardware we developed so far. It consists of a drone with a microarray and onboard cameras. We can fix the hardware on a tripod so that we can use it to collect the data safely, either in indoor or outdoor environment. Finally, I would like to show a demo of our counter research outcome. And we have 3 people standing in front of the drone, and they are talking concurrently. We will use the camera to localize the location of the speaker, and then use the microarray to extract the sound from each speaker. I hope you can hear the sound clearly. Let me have a try.
As an example, people simultaneously talking to a mini drone.
Yeah, you can see in the original recording, you can almost hear nothing because of the noise from the drone. But after processing, you can roughly hear the speech from each human. And this is a reference of our recent publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Fine, Elisabetta is now.
My research is at the interface between animal behavior, animal cognition, artificial intelligence, and robotics. I'd like to have a chance to tell you something about my research on social interactions. So in the last months, we have seen how crucial are social interactions, but also there are some challenges. How can we understand which social interactions are more effective and which ones are able to promote healthy behavior? This is not easy. Actually, it's hard. And why? Because we cannot experimentally control the behavior of all the social agents that are involved. And we face the same problems also when we study animals, other species. But there is an advantage if we go to the lab and study other species, because we can experimentally manipulate them in a full completely from the beginning of life using robots in their artificial environment and investigate different aspects of their life. In this way, I think we will be able to advance biomedical research and neuroscience and to build interactive agents that can help us to improve animal welfare and production, and also to build assistive robots. So we said that social interactions are very central from the beginning of our life. And this is true also for other animals, like rodents and chicks. So why do we use chicks? There is a fundamental advantage. They are precocial. So studying both chicks and human infants, we were able to identify some interesting parallels. Both chicks and human infants have these social predispositions. So from the beginning of life, they preferentially orient towards some cues that are related to living beings. Some are the biological motion cues that Ola have already identified and explained before. But interestingly, these social predispositions sometimes are impaired. And they are impaired both in children that are at high risk of autism and in chicks that are exposed to some drugs that can induce autism. So now we have a model, the chick, for investigate neurodevelopmental disorders. We can use them together with artificial intelligence and robotics for early risk assessment of neurodevelopmental disorders at birth, and also develop robots to deploy interventions to mitigate the symptoms and use this at the beginning of life when the brain is more plastic. So at the moment, in collaboration with ARQ, we are developing some vibrotactile sensors and actuators that can stimulate the chicks and to understand which are the most important parts of interaction at the beginning of life, and using artificial intelligence to identify which pleasure calls and distress calls are more effective in the social interactions for chicks. And we are also interested in identifying the types of engagement in open or closed loops that are effective for chicks, neonate chicks, to establish social relationships. In a second line of research, we have realized that chicks are not just a model for neuroscience, but are an opportunity. Because chicken meat is a growing market and is about to become the 50% of proteins used for human consumptions. There is an opportunity here, but there is also a challenge. The challenge to address the needs of animals on a large scale, 24 hours a day, in a competitive environment. We want to increase productivity and reduce expenses. And at the same time, there is an ethical challenge, animal welfare. We want all this to be ethical. But in industrial farming, there is no space for living hands. And this causes several problems, fear, misbehavior, and injuries in the chickens, but also reduced growth rate and reduced welfare. So here, we think that we want to provide solutions to research, with our research, to develop robotic hands to help farmers in monitoring in the sheds, and to provide robots that can interact 24 hours a day with the chickens to provide care and to increase production. And this in the context of ethical and sustainable farming. So just to summarize, my research wants to conjugate artificial intelligence, robotics, neuroscience, and animal behavior to develop biomedical applications and farming. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you. Just announcement that presentation by Stuart will be skipped for the reason that he cannot join, but we will have now final presentation by Angadh. Angadh, please share your screen.
Yeah, can you hear me and can you see my camera feed?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Angadh, and especially thank you, Danielle, for making time to meet with all of us virtually. So greatly appreciate that. I am a lecturer in the aerospace division, and my title is Lecturer in Aerospace and Spacecraft Engineering. That's my background. I come from spacecraft dynamics and control and a robotics background. And my research at QM is primarily in the area of computational multibody dynamics and control, with applications in the aerospace area, but it transcends into the world of subsea robotics as well, because I work in, as you'll see, topics such as variable mass systems. So to just like motivate my research, the application side of things is that we use autonomous systems for space exploration today, but in the future, we also want to use them for developing habitats, whether they're orbiting habitats or ones on the moon or Mars, as well as for eventually resource utilization. Now, in that area, I looked at two primary sets of systems, the first one of which is the interplanetary landers. Now, the first one over here, this image shows you the Mars InSight, which is one of the most recent landers that was sent to the surface of Mars. And the challenges here are that of landing softly either on the surface of Mars or an asteroid, or that of precision landing. So under the precision landing title, which is out here, we see an image of how the landing ellipses have shrunk over time. And you can see that prior to Mars InSight, we still had roughly a 20 kilometer by 6 kilometer ellipse for landing. And one of the main reasons for that is that we still rely on the usage of parachutes to land these systems on the surface of Mars. And eventually, towards the end, we use retropropulsion to like bring the system down to the surface. For the larger future crewed interplanetary landers that SpaceX and lots of other companies are thinking about, such as Blue Origin, we're not going to be able to rely on something that uses parachutes. So we have to rely purely on thrusting systems. And one of the limitations of the current modeling approaches that are in the world of these interplanetary landers, even though they're autonomous, is that you model them as small particles. So you don't really take into consideration the effects of geometry, as well as the fact that you might have as in the case of this rocket out here, that you have these control surfaces which can also sort of orient themselves relative to the base. So we have the need to study both computational multibody dynamics of these systems, which is the central pillar at the bottom of your screen, as well as the mass variation that is the left pillar. So that's area number one. The second area that I've been working on more recently is with Airbus and Surrey Satellite Technology Limited, which is on the construction of large Earth observation telescopes using autonomous robots. Now, once we can do something like this, we can see that in the future we might build large space solar power stations or also habitats. And to achieve these kinds of to achieve this kind of vision, we need to address both variable mass systems, because you have, as you can see over here, one spacecraft docking to another one, while a robotic arm picks up some other module and tries to attach it. So this is your multi-link robotic arm out here. And so for that, you need the multi-body dynamics part of things. And of course, there's the whole concept of what does the space telescope contain in the case of a space telescope or a habitat or a space solar power system. So you have this third topic of space missions concepts analysis and design. So looking at these two as the summary of my interests from a systems perspective, it's become evident that what there is a need to like sort of build a platform that combines and lets you study the dynamics of systems that are both multi-body as well as variable mass, but in the context of space missions. But that is not necessarily limited to space missions as well. And they achieved using a previous software kit that my friends and I have developed as part of an open source Python group, which is called SymPy out here. And we extended the SymPy work to do numerical simulations of mechanical systems as well. And that was called PyDy, which is Python Dynamics. So this is an open source framework that I want to build up to sort of devise, develop, and demonstrate the dynamics and control algorithms of such systems in future space missions. That's part one. That's just the simulation side of things. But then we also want to take this robotic system that we're looking at over here and try to emulate it both on the ground as well as towards a space mission. And this is an image that's taken off of current work that's going on at the Naval Postgraduate School in California. So this is sort of like what's going to help us emulate what we build up with a walking robotic system. So this robotic system walks along over here. And of course, there's like major impact for the UK industry over here as well, already working with Airbus and SSTL, but there's also significant interest from the European side in terms of DLR, which is the German Aerospace Center. And with that, I am done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I posted a link to our website in the group chat. You can go to the website and see all the speakers are listed there. You can contact them if you have any questions. Thank you everyone for attending this event. At this point, we will close it.